She says, okay, go.
All right.
Go my hair. Not that it'll help.
Today I'm going to be interviewing with you. You are on camera right now. So, what did you do for fun in the 1950s?
In the 1950s, I played hopscotch, ring around the roses, hide and seek, run around the yard like a crazy wild Indian, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a favorite toy or game that you would play?
Well, I had my dolly, and her name was Mary Ann, and she went everywhere with me.
Okay. What kind of music did you listen to?
Well, in the 50s, let's see, how old was I? I was born in 1943. So I was how old? About 7, 8, 9, 10.
Around there.
Oh, my brother and sister-in-law loved the swing, Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey bands. They were wonderful. Oh my gosh, they were wonderful. I like the big bands.
Now for this question, who was your favorite singer?
My favorite singer back then?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Hmm.
Then, did you have a favorite band?
Well, yes, the Dorsey brothers, Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey, but they were like back in the 40s probably, but I loved their music. That was a big band era, and they did the swing, and my brother and sister-in-law would do the boogie woogie. It was so great to watch them. I would just laugh. It was fun, fun, fun. The men wore zoot suits. They had zoot suits. That's what they called them. And they had hats and zoot suits, and they danced around. It was so cool.
That sounds fun, Grandma.
It was.
Okay, next question. What was a big event that happened?
Well, the big event, it was such a big, big deal. It was on television. We had a television, and yes, it was a little one. I don't know how, maybe 12 inches. I can't tell you. It was a little one, but yes. And we watched, and this I get mixed up. We either watched the coronation of Queen Elizabeth
It was a coronation, Grandma.
or the wedding. It seems like I saw her wedding, too.
Hey, Grandma.
Yeah.
Grandma, I think it was a coronation because I looked it up.
Okay. That was
The
a
coronation was in the 1950s.
That was a big deal, and we watched her. Oh yes, that was a big deal. The Queen of England.
Okay, Grandma.
Okay.
What was your favorite memory?
My favorite memory from the 50s, and I would say, about 10 years old or so. Right, it was no such thing as a block away. We lived in the country, and we lived in a big old farmhouse, and it had a big old barn, and the farmhouse was so cool. It was really unique, and it had a old-time stove, the old-time stove where the iron lids came up, and you built a fire to cook and make your food. And we had a pantry that was way big, and it was like another room. It had a window in it, and it was wonderful. But my favorite memory was of the school, because we lived next to the school, and it wasn't far from our house, and we could walk to it, and it was a one-room schoolhouse. And we had the grades was kindergarten through 8th grade. And my baby brother was in kindergarten. I was in, I guess, 3rd or 4th grade. And my brother was in the next grade up, maybe 4th grade, whatever. And then each row was a different grade. And the 8th grade girl, there was maybe 2 or 3 8th graders in that school. And one of the 8th grade girls, she would help the teacher. And the teacher would stand in front of the kindergarten row. It was a whole row. Back then we had our biscuit rows. And so she'd stand in front of that row and she'd give them an assignment and they would be working on it. Then she'd go to the next grade, the next row, like 1st grade, and give them an assignment and they would work on it. And she did that all through the rows, and the 8th grade student, she would help the smaller kids. It was really fun. It was a fun time. And when recess came, we had an outhouse and we had a well. And when recess time came, we would go out in the yard to play, and our teacher, she was so nice. She was a young woman. She would hike, and they wore they called them pencil skirts, like long skirts but skinny. And she would hike her skirts up and get out there and play baseball with us. And we just had the best time. Oh, and let me tell you, we had a big dog, and his name was Snowball. Great big dog, big as Diesel. And he would follow us to school every day, and then he'd go home. And when it was time for school to come out, he would walk over there and wait for us and walk us home. It was so cool. It was really cool. It was good times. We had good times. We did. I loved that farmhouse. It was so cool.
Yeah, I bet it was. Okay, next question. Was there any world disasters
World disasters.
that happened?
Well, I'm guessing, and I'm sure it was a disaster, because polio was out then, and it was bad, and it affected children, mostly I think, maybe adults, but mostly kids. And you would see children with crutches, and children that couldn't walk, and children in wheelchairs. It was a terrible, debilitating thing. And finally, they came out with the polio vaccine that, kept people from getting it, but it was bad, and lots of children had it, lots and lots of children. And so anyway, when they came out with the vaccine, it was a sugar cube, and they would put this medicine on it, and then we would eat it, and it worked. It worked, and it helped a lot. It helped a lot, but it was kind of sad because you would see crippled children with braces on their legs and knees and arms, and it was very sad. Yeah. So I guess that was a pretty big disaster.
Well, how did you dress in the 1950s, Grandma?
How did I dress? Well,
Yeah, how'd you dress?
they had full skirts, and when I mean full skirts, it was like you would take a circle for the material, and then you put a hole in the middle, and that would be you. That's how full they were.
Oh my God.
They were really full. And then also, the girls would wear can-cans, they called them. They were,
Oh, yeah.
can-cans, and they were nylon things to make the skirt stand out. And, and I loved it. Oh my goodness, I'd twirl and watch my skirt go around and round and round. That was so much fun.
Did you ever do a princess sit, Grandma? Like where you twirl and then you sit down and let the skirt flare out?
Oh, I'm sure I did. I loved those full skirts. Those full skirts were so much fun. Yeah, I'm sure I did that.
What was your favorite movie?
Oh gosh, we didn't really go to the movies. We entertained ourselves at home. We didn't go to movies back then. No. And we were lucky to have a television, as little as it was, and we watched stuff on TV. Whatever, maybe we watched Howdy Doody and Buffalo Bob or something like that.
Oh my gosh. Did you ever watch I Love Lucy?
All the time. I still like to watch her. She's on the old TV stations, and she's on an island. She is so crazy. I like it especially the one where she worked in the chocolate factory. And the line got too fast, and she kept sticking the chocolates in her mouth, in her pockets, because the line was speeding up and she couldn't pack them.
My favorite one is the Vita Meaty Veggie Girl. I'm your Vita Meaty Veggie Girl.
She was crazy. She could do anything. She was just so funny.
Yeah. How did you get around?
Well, my brother, one of my brothers, his name was James, got his driver's license. So he was a really young guy, young teenage guy, maybe 16, 17, whatever. And he would take us places where we had to go. If we had to go somewhere, my mother would let him drive. And I'd get in the car. We had a green 1950 Ford. It was such a nice car. We would get in the car and I'd say, "Drive on, James." And he'd get so mad at me, like he was my chauffeur. It was fun.
Did you ever, bike or anything?
Bike? Yes. A few years later, let's see, I got a bike when I was about 12 or 13, maybe 13 or 14. My very first bike, and before that I had to ride my brother's bikes. When I say my brother's bike, I had 5 brothers and there was one bike. And a couple of my brothers was older, so they worked, and one was married, the other one worked at a job, and so anyhow, I learned to ride on a boy's bike, and it was hard, and I was little, and when I wanted to get off, I had to find a place to fall down. To get on, I'd have to find a big rock that I could stand on to get my little legs over the bicycle, because I was so short. And I'd ride this big old bike, and when I wanted off, I'd look for a soft spot, and I'd just fall over.
Oh my gosh, Grandma.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. It gave me this little insight into what happened in the 1950s.
You're very welcome. I wish you could have been there. You would have loved it. Oh, let me tell you something fun I did.
Oh.
This is really fun. We lived in a farmhouse, and we had grapes. So we got a big vat, and my cousin and me, my dad and mother decided they were going to make homemade wine. And you know how you make wine, the real way that they make wine. They put them in a wooden vat, and you get in there and stomp on the grapes in your bare feet. So my cousin, her name was Peggy, and me, we got in there and hiked up our skirts and we stomped all over the grapes. And let me tell you something, that makes your legs itch. That makes your legs itch. But we made homemade wine. My dad made some and put it in the basement. And it was down there, and my brother Bart and my cousin decided they should sample it. He was like 2 years older than me. And so anyway, they got in trouble because they were sampling the wine.
Oh, I bet they did.
But it was all fun, all fun.
Well, I'm going to let you go, Grandma.
Well, don't let me go too far. I love you.
Okay, bye, Grandma.
Bye.